Danny, a lot of facts and figures to digest and get our heads around, but break it down into the bare bones. What's the story that's emerging?
I think the general story is that cycling's on the rebound. I think it's had obviously well-documented issues over the years, and I think the fans are really coming back to the sport and seeing that there's a lot more trust in it than there possibly was the last 5-10 years prior. So I think the story is it's good for the sport from a fan perspective, and it's great for the sport from a sponsorship perspective.
Why are those fans coming back? Is it purely a trust issue? In the dark days, did they didn't believe what was happening in the sport? They didn't want to really believe what was happening? Yeah,
look, I think it's a bit of both. I think the sport. Look, it's on at a great time of year. It's on in the summer. There's not a lot of, the football's only just coming back into play. So I think it occupies a really good time on the calendar for fandom to sort of spend time engaging with it. But look, definitely, as the sport moves to clean its act up, and I think it's made great strides in that area, fans tend to feel more affinity to that and start watching and supporting it. So.
What are the headline figures that emerged from this report?
I think that the work we did back in 2012, moving forward into 15 now, sees an increase globally of around 3% on average, which you might not think that's a lot, but in the context of 3% of the sports fan population of the world, it's a lot of people. And that translates into greater interest from brands, and you see that it's the first time, I think, in the history of the tour that they have 5 top-tier partners supporting the tour. So I think there's obviously smaller stories within that across different markets, like Italy, that's had massive growth from a traditionally strong base. UAE, huge growth off a very small base, but 14 percentage points over that 2-year period's a lot. So.
We can't ignore what's happened during this tour, which is Team Sky feeling the need to come out and defend Chris Froome. Chris Froome having urine thrown in his face a few days ago. Clearly, it hasn't fully turned the corners just yet. Yeah,
look, I think it's inevitable that there's going to be continued speculation, particularly when someone performs so well. I think if he was leading by 20 seconds at this stage of the tour, there wouldn't be as much talk, but he's just done such a great job that the first, I suppose, default point of fans that are cynical is that there's something untoward going on. But look, I think it's great that Team Sky come out and support their athlete by demonstrating their transparency, because that's what the sport needs. The more transparent it is, I think the more likelihood fans are going to continue to come back to the sport.
French viewers continue to watch the tour, obviously, although perhaps a little bit of resentment from the French that it's now been 30 years since they had a French cyclist win the tour, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it captures the imagination of the nation, no doubt, in France. The fact that it's a unique sport that goes through villages and towns, and part of the issues with the urine incident with Froome is a function of the beauty of the sport. People can get right up close to their heroes, and look, I think the French lack of performance over the last years is probably difficult for the fan base of France, obviously, but I think they'll still continue to come out and support it. It's a national event, and it's a fantastic way for them to showcase their country to the rest of the world.
And you touched on the sponsors coming back to the sport. No doubt a lot of sponsors didn't want to be tarred with that brush for a long time. What sort of sponsors are we seeing now come back to cycling?
Yeah, I think, with Rabobank was probably the highest profile brand to leave the sport a couple of years ago in the height of all the drama. And they're a financial services company, so the trust is a really key element in anything they do from a industry-facing perspective. So I could sort of understand why there'd be a need to move away. But I think we're seeing brands across different sectors. LCL, we've got the deal that's just been done with Dimension Data out of South Africa, which is a significant deal to be an official technology partner of the tour, which hopefully will, from what I understand, is aimed at providing a better viewing experience to fans, which will ultimately drive, again, gain more engagement with the sport. So, I think the fact that these big brands are willing to back the sport now again is a function of that shift in fan perception.
Can cycling now afford to pat itself in the back and think, right, we've come full circle, or is the biggest battle for cycling still regaining trust?
Look, I think they've still got a ways to go, and I think to your point about the Froome incident again, it's part of that process, and I think that they're doing a good job in getting themselves to a point where they're regaining the trust of the fan base, and I think that there's still a job to be done, and they'll continue to work on it, and I'm sure the more transparent they get with their testing and their reporting of statistics like what's happened overnight, I think is key in that process.